So we have 3 evenings that we can talk about healing the mind. Healing the mind is a topic that is very close to my heart. And I'll tell you a little bit how I came in contact with that. It's actually when I was working as a physiotherapist. I have my own practice with little children, starting from 3 months old, and most were babies from 3 months till 2 years old. And when I was 28, I did a meditation course, looking for some answers for a lot of disturbances that were going on in my mind. And during that course, I had a very strong spiritual experience, and somehow connected with an awareness of the more subtle layers of our mind. Maybe I should say it like that. I'm not sure how to phrase certain things. But what happened is that I could see part of reality that normally we don't see, which for me is like reading a book. For me, actually doing that is much easier than reading a book. Reading a book is quite difficult for me. Seeing where somebody is at, or when somebody tells me a problem, knowing where it comes from is kind of an intuitive thing that comes quite easily. So connecting with that capacity, I started using that, or it started using me in healing the children. And I learned a lot in the following 7 years from these kids and working with these kids in how the mind and the body work together, and how we often try to fix things that are not going in a good way. For instance, I had children that had a lot of physical problems in terms of not being able to roll over, not being able to sit, not being able to crawl, not being able to walk. And I discovered that often when we just follow what is coming intuitively, we are doing the opposite of what in a natural sense is needed for things to happen naturally. And that sounds maybe like, what are you talking about? I hope I'm going to make clear during these 3 teachings what I observe and how we are, why it is so difficult for us to connect with this. And at the same time, the moment that we can tune into that, it becomes very easy to connect with that. Does that make sense? A little bit. So basically what I discovered is that when I would follow the instructions that I had as a physiotherapist, I would often do the opposite of what actually naturally is required for proper healing to take place. And so in communication with the children, I feel that they were showing me how the body and the mind work together, how the mind works, how the body works, how they work together, and how we can heal or let dissolve certain obstructions in that normal functioning of the body and the mind. And so I did that for 7 years. And then I walked a little bit against, or I bumped into the dealing with the parents. I could see that when the children have problems, that often the parents are caught up in a similar kind of problem. And so then I tried to heal the children. But if the parents keep doing the same as that they always do, the child will often just they will often just follow the parent again, which makes it very difficult to make changes in the functioning of the child. So I needed to express what I was doing to the parents. And so then I discovered that parents are so caught up in their way of thinking and in their defense mechanisms, and that it is sometimes very difficult to bring across, or even to ask the parents to make changes in their own behavior, in their own way of relating to the child, that would obstruct the healing of the child. And what I also discovered is that I had a lack of words, a lack of ways to express what I was experiencing or what I was observing. And so then at a certain point, I thought, well, really, to get to the essence of things and to make real changes in the child, I need to have the parents also. The parents need to be involved in that process. And in order to be able to do that, I need more knowledge. I need to know better what I'm doing. I need to have some words for that. So at a certain point, I decided to leave my practice, and I sold everything that I had, and I went to India because I thought I first need to find a guru, and then I need to find a way to be able to bring this into I need to find a way so that I can express to adults what I'm actually doing. So this was my intention. And then I ended up in Tushita, connected to the teachings, connected to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, became a nun. And then Lama Zopa kept saying, study this, study basic program, study master program, study, which was not so easy for me because I'm not a reader. But I think Buddhism has given me a framework of reality and how we can speak about reality in the terms of the reality that we experience outside, but also the reality within ourselves, the reality of the mind, and the reality on the ultimate level and the conventional level. And so it gave me a framework that helps me to express what I was already experiencing before that. Right. So in these three teachings, I will bring these two together. So when I speak about healing the mind, I think in the last 25 years or 30 years that I met Buddhism, I've been observing my own mind. I've seen many obstacles in my own mind, and obstacles that are related to not really to having certain convictions about life and about how things work that are not in accordance with Buddhism. But they were so ingrained in me that they were my reality. They were like, and then when they are my reality, they become like blind spots. So, which means that when I start practicing Buddhism, that I have blind spots, and these blind spots make that I keep repeating certain things that are not in accordance with reality, that therefore are actually causing me to suffer. But I believe that I'm practicing Buddhism and I'm practicing the causes for happiness. Right. And so then to eliminate these patterns that we have, patterns of thinking, maybe deep-seated beliefs, we need to identify them. And then we need to kind of unravel them. And we need to learn how things function in actuality. And then slowly start bringing changes in the way we are doing things. So maybe that's a big introduction. This is what I'm going to use as a background in these three classes. And so then when we speak about healing, then we need to know, what does it mean? I want to heal, or what does it mean, healing in itself? And how do we heal? And how can we use the wisdom that we find in Buddhism to help us heal, right? And we know you are all familiar with the teachings from Buddhism. You have all studied a little bit. Who is completely new? A little bit. So you have heard of the conventional reality? Not. So conventional reality is the reality that we perceive with our senses, also with our mental consciousness, the things that we are talking about, the things that are very obvious. Part of conventional reality is also things that we cannot see. For instance, the workings of karma. But that still works on a conventional level. We can think about it. We can somehow access that. Ultimate reality is how things exist eventually, right? And if we think about ultimate reality, in Buddhism, we say everything comes from the mind, right? Everything comes from the mind, which means that nothing exists in and of itself. Nothing exists independent of the mind, right? Everything that exists is somehow related to the mind. And so that is the ultimate reality of things, that things do not have their own independent ultimate entity, right? So everything is therefore relative. So we can use the knowledge of both conventional reality and ultimate reality in healing. And that is using the wisdom aspect in healing. If we want to heal, we need to know what I need to do, right? It's like where does the healing need to take place? Where is there a disconnect that needs to heal, right? And in order to find that disconnect, we need to have a proper understanding of reality. True? It's like I need to know what am I doing wrong? Where do I go in the wrong direction? Right? If I go in the wrong direction, I know that is what I'm doing is not healing. What I'm doing is maybe even hurting myself. And we do that a lot, but because we don't know where we're going wrong, right? So we use our wisdom mind and the knowledge about reality in order to generate more understanding in our own mind about that reality. And then when we can identify that reality, oh, there I'm going wrong, or there I'm engaging in actions in a way that is not in accordance with reality. Therefore, it is not helpful or beneficial for me. It's not that what is going to make me happy. It's not that what is going to make me feel satisfied, etc. So we need to know, right? The Buddha said in the first teaching, when he spoke about the nature of reality, that the nature of life or life is in the nature of suffering, right? That's the reality. He helped us to see reality. We don't see that level of reality. It's very difficult for us to see what it means that life is in the nature of suffering. So in order to know that, we need to develop our wisdom mind. So that is part of what we're going to do in these 3 sessions. And then another thing that I would like to do is that how we can take care of ourselves in a way that it is healing for us, in a way that we do not hurt ourselves. And I don't know if you have heard these teachings, that if we just live life as it comes, then we are constantly motivated by the 8 worldly concerns. Have you heard of that? The 8 worldly dharmas. We are constantly reacting to what is happening with our attachment, with our aversion. It's a constant reaction that happens on a level that we are not aware of it. And it happens automatically. And by doing that, we're actually constantly disturbing our mind. Right? So how do we, so following the 8 worldly concerns is not healing, right? It's hurting ourselves. It's creating the causes for suffering again and again. So how can we do things differently so that the things that we are doing become more in line with reality? Not coming from the 8 worldly dharmas, but coming from loving kindness and compassion, coming from wisdom. So we're going to look into that, and then we're going to look a little bit into how compassion is, how can that help us to heal? Right? Healing, I think, for me, healing means connection. when we're disconnected on whatever level, there is a disconnect. We feel that something is not right. Somehow, maybe I need a connection, but how do I make that connection? And so compassion, I feel, is the is a power that we have that helps to connect. In order to know how to connect or where to connect, we need to have that wisdom. We need to have that proper understanding. And then to make the connection, we need to have our compassion. True? Does that make sense what I'm saying? So this is what I would like to do in the coming 3 teachings. It's a little overview, so that we know that we heal through wisdom and compassion. I don't think we can separate that. I don't think we can only heal with compassion. I also think we can not only heal with wisdom. We need both of them to let the healing happen. True. So healing is already a word that you can talk about. What is healing, right? So for me, healing is becoming whole, because things that are wholesome, things that are beneficial, things that are acknowledging myself the way I am, things that are in line with reality. Yeah. So what I would like to do in this session, in order to kind of set ourselves up in order to understand better the relation of wisdom and compassion with healing, is that we first speak about the relationship between the body and the mind, and on which levels that we can heal. And then look a little bit at our current state. You know, it's like there's so many aspects in our life that are not in accordance with reality, and therefore that are kind of the source of our problems. There's so many levels where we could, if we have more understanding, and if we have more understanding about life in itself and how the mind works, there are so many things that we can do in order to change that. Right. So I want to say a little bit about that. And then apply that to our current state, and how our current state, the way that we grew up, how that affects our understanding of Buddhism. And with that, also the understanding of how to practice. I think we have some blind spots within our conditioning, you know, within the way that our culture holds on to certain things that make it very difficult to see Buddhism in the correct light. And so sometimes we can practice for years, but we have a kind of a belief within that practice that makes it very difficult to progress quickly. And we can think, I'm doing this again wrong, you know, something is not right, but what is it? So I want to see if we can bring to the light a few of these mistakes that we make, that we received through our upbringing, that is not somebody's fault, but it's just the conditioning that we receive within our culture. When we speak about Buddhism, Buddhism comes from the East. It comes from India, Nepal, and then maybe even China, Japan. These people have a different mind. Right? When they speak about karma, it's completely natural for them. And the understanding about karma is completely natural for them. For us, it's very difficult to understand what karma means. Right? So where does that come from? And how does our mind work? And how does that prevent us from understanding Buddhism as it was meant to be? You know, how can we undo that conditioning, or how can we? Sometimes I have the feeling our ears are programmed in a certain way that we can't really hear the teachings as they were meant to be. Do you ever have that feeling that you listen and that you think, and I see these Tibetan lamas and they do something that is so different from the way that we do it, but I don't know what it is. It's like I can't really change that thing in me. I don't even know what it is, but I can see that they are different. Is that true? It's like you had Geshe Tenzin Zopa with you. The way that he functions is different from us, isn't it? They're more comfortable with themselves. They're more at ease. They have a relaxation with them that we do not have. So what is it that there must be something in their conditioning which is different from us. So I'll give you a little bit of the understanding that I received in the last 25 years looking into this. And I hope that's helping you to practice more connected with who you truly are. Okay, so far, any questions? Yes, Sarah.
Hi, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, this framing is super helpful. I really appreciate what you kind of how you're framing it. And I did just want to ask, I was thinking especially in relation to your initial work with the children and their parents. I was very interested. I'd love to hear a specific example of kind of like something that you noticed that you worked with the kids, but then you said their parents would be doing something that would kind of reverse the work that you had done and wouldn't be open. So I would love to hear a specific example of that, or if there's just something more relevant. I mean, I know it's kind of all a synopsis for the Buddhist path, or you're talking about the whole path. If there's something else that comes to you as an example of kind of what it was like before, and then what was the example or what was the key that turned something around, if you have an example that comes to mind.
A key that turns things around for myself or for in the work?
Well, I was specifically interested because of the stories you told about working with the kids, and then their parents would kind of send their healing back. And of course, I think part of why that was interesting to me is, dealing with a lot of my own family issues and, overcoming the patterns. So that's why I was especially interested in hearing kind of what you observed with the kids and their parents.
I can say something in general, but I mean, it's so long time ago that it's very difficult to find a concrete example. But what I see that children are doing is that parents are their role model. It's like children learn by mirroring their parents. And so whatever is in the family that is expressed on an unconscious automatic level, children do the same, right? And so often the things that we are doing, they are driven by fear or by the fight and flight reactions. And so then when the parents are caught up in that, and the child also gets caught up in that, and then I'm working with the child and I'm finding another way of moving, which is not using the fight and flight reactions, but it is actually coming from a force from within that is more authentic and that is free from these fight and flight reactions. But then they go back to the parents, and the parents, right? And so then it's almost like being with the parents is undoing what we just established in the therapy session. So then I would have to explain to parents that there is a fight and flight reaction that you are holding onto, and that if you keep holding onto that, your child will not be able to become free of that. But then the parents would say, oh, no, don't work with me. I don't have a problem. My child has a problem, right? And so often I felt like if the child is not strong enough to stand in its own power, which is separate from the parents, right? They keep copying what the parents are doing. Mm-hmm. And so then in order to make the change in the child, I do need the parents to have more awareness around that. So I don't know if that is an example. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
helpful.
we're
That's
often caught
helpful.
up in
Thank
these
you.
fight and flight reactions. No, it's they are underlying on in our behavior, and we are not. And you can call it a defensiveness, like oh no, don't go there. No, I cannot go there. Often related to deep wounds that we have inside ourselves, right? And so sometimes these wounds are of a quality that the parents could not go there. It's like it's too painful, it's too much, it's too difficult. Right? But it means that if the parent can't do that, the child cannot become free of that, not at that point in time.
Yeah, right. Thank you. That's great.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? A question on the introduction? You have a little bit idea what we're going to do? Yeah, first looking into our own situation, and then in Buddhism, what we always say is that we start with setting a good motivation and then we take refuge. And I thought maybe we can do that. The good motivation being good and bad is already a massive thing that we have to talk about, what is good and what is bad. Good motivation means that we set up a motivation that is bigger than ourselves and bigger than this life. If we do not adjust our motivation, the motivation that we have automatically is the motivation of the 8 worldly concerns. This is how we are programmed, right? This is just how it works. We are obsessed with the 8 worldly concerns. So if I start thinking about healing, it's like, I want to be happy now. And I want to be happy. And once I'm happy, then maybe I can do something for others, but I want to be happy and I want to have it now. True? And I think healing is, and when we talk about Buddhism also, we have to make that perspective much broader in order to really harvest the benefits from it. So we have to make it bigger than I want to have it just for me. And we have to make it bigger than I want to have it now. Especially that I want to have it now and I want to have it in this life, right? If there's no benefit for me in this life, why would I do it? True. And so if we do it just for this life, then according to Buddhism, what we are actually, so if our motivation is just for this life, then the result of that is actually only suffering. This is like our drama. If we just do it for this life, the result is only suffering. So we have to think that it's not only about this life. It's about the healing process is going to take a long time. The healing process is becoming more whole, which means becoming more my true self, which means becoming more, developing myself in accordance with the potential that I have. And in Buddhism, we know that we all have a potential for all the good qualities that exist, that we have the potential to develop them in our own mind. And we have the potential to remove all the obstructions that we have in our awareness. Right. But in order to do that, we need a long time. It's not something that is going to happen like that. It's not going to happen overnight. And we have to think in that it is an ongoing process. And which means that the ultimate healing, becoming fully enlightened, might not happen in this life. But it doesn't mean that it's not my purpose. It doesn't mean that I won't strive for that. And so when I put my purpose very far away, beyond this life, then I will not only have benefit after this life, I will also have benefit within this life. Right? But if I have the purpose only for this life, there will be no benefit. There will be only suffering that comes from that. So we have to make it a bit bigger. Right? So what we can think is that what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a beginning with developing our good qualities. We're going to make a beginning with understanding the nature of our mind. We're going to make a beginning with that, but we don't limit that just to this life. We're going to say, okay, I do now something, what I can do. But I know that that is not the end. I know that it is an ongoing process that goes beyond just this life. And when I develop these qualities, that is not only going to be of benefit to me, it's going to benefit everybody around me. You know, it's like developing these qualities is shining our inner light. It's like we turn on our inner light. And when that light is turned on, it is enlightening us, but it is also enlightening everybody around us. It is giving light, giving happiness to everyone around us. And if we engage in these activities with that kind of awareness, the benefits are going to be, they're going to be only benefits coming from them. Right? So I ask you to think about a mind like that. And then, I don't know, maybe we can just take formally refuge, which means that, you know, the refuge is nothing else than that we're going to develop these qualities, and that we're going to, in order to develop them, we rely upon the Buddhist teachings, and we rely upon those who already have achieved these realizations, and rely upon our own inner potential to develop these qualities. Right? So when we say the refuge prayer, that is what we actually mean with that. Okay, so shall we do that? Yes, Triple, can you put it up? And so we can recite it 3 times in English together. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right, so now we're going to talk about healing, and we're going to talk a little bit about the body and the mind. So, because we can feel that we can have a broken body, right? We can break parts in our body, or we can break the skin, or we can break a bone, or we can break something that needs healing, or we can have something in our mind that feels broken, or that feels not right or wrong, or something that I need to fix. Yeah, ever have that feeling? I need to fix something in myself. It's not working properly. I'm not sure what is wrong, but something is not right. Right? So then we can heal that. So we are very familiar with healing on a physical level. And it is very obvious when there is a problem, when there is something broken. We know what to do with that, right? We need to give it care. We need to give it time. We need to give it rest. And then healing, how does healing take place? Do we need to do something for it to heal? Or is that something that happens naturally? Right. So when we provide the correct conditions, healing is something that happens naturally. Right? We don't have to do the healing. We just have to provide something in which healing can take place. True? I think same with the mind. In order for the mind to heal, we need to provide conditions so that healing take place. So it is not that I have to, when I break a bone, And we know that the bone needs to be fixed, but we don't think I need to fix the bone. We think, what do I need to do so that the bone can fix itself? True? So I think same with the mind. It's like if I feel broken, or if I feel that something is really wrong, something is not right, I cannot fix it in the sense that, or if I just do the right thing, it will fix itself. But what I can do is I can provide conditions to my own being, to myself, to my environment, so that the healing can take place. Right? So when we think I thought this for a long time, I need to fix myself, right? Something is really wrong with me. So that's why I also became a nun, because I thought I need to practice 24 hours a day in order to fix myself. But the fixing doesn't happen from the practice. The practice is not something that is doing the fixing. It's providing a condition in which healing can take place. And so then when we think about what we normally suffer from in life, it's like sometimes we suffer from a physical problem, but more often physically it's kind of quite all right, right? We maybe have some physical problems, some pain in the body, or maybe I had a lot of pain in my body for a long time, actually. But often, especially when it is difficult to find the cause of that, the problem is maybe coming more from the mind. There is something happening in the mind that causes the body to experience pain. If we look into things like how often do we break a leg, how often do we have an accident, how often do we, cut ourselves? Hardly ever. But if we think about how do I feel in my body, there is often a lot of suffering there. True or not? And so if we can relate that suffering to maybe the mind that is living inside the body, or is incarnated in the body, and that is connected to the body. So what if we would say maybe there is something is not right there? The fact that I feel a lot of suffering means that something is not right in the way that my body and my mind work together. So what can I do with my mind in order to heal that relationship? And so when we suffer, I think most of our suffering comes from emotional problems, or maybe I should not say problems, emotionally not taking care of ourselves in a way that it is wholesome for ourselves. And then I think about, do we truly know how to take care of ourselves? How to be compassionate with ourselves? I don't know, have you learned that? I never learned that in my upbringing. I learned to be very tough with myself, right? Not much compassion, just well, compassion is a healing quality. So if I know how to take care of myself when I'm in pain, I'm already giving myself something that is healing. True. So we're going to talk about that. How can we do that? Then if we speak about healing in terms of psychological suffering that we experience, is psychologically, if we look into how the mind works, we have this, and I'm coming back to the 8 worldly concerns. Every time that feeling arises in the mind, which is actually every moment of mind, there is a feeling arising in the mind. We react to that feeling with aversion or with attachment. When nice feelings arise, attachment is straight away there, wanting more. And if an unpleasant feeling arises in the mind, aversion is straight away there, trying to separate from that. We do not have control over these reactions. They come automatically, instantly. Next moment, the reaction is there. Right? And if we are not aware of that, if we are not mindful of that, we get caught up in these reactions. Right? So if I have experienced suffering in my body and mind, where somewhere I experience suffering, automatically there is an aversion. Automatically there is a tendency, I want to get away from this. I don't want to feel this. Right? That's a natural reaction that we have. But if we investigate that reaction actually causes us to suffer more. But we don't have control over these reactions, right? So then what do? If we want to heal, we need to stop believing in these reactions. We need to do something so that we don't get caught up into following that reaction automatically. True? And we sometimes think that, oh, that is just when I suffer, I have this aversion, I need to stop that. No, also when there is pleasant feelings arising and we have this attachment, that is causing us also to suffer. So also that we somehow need to find a way so that instead of being reactive, we become more responsive, that we are not constantly caught up in reactions, but that we have a way of being that we are not reacting to feelings, but we are coming from a place of maybe that's a big step. What I'm going to make is acting in accordance with our values. Some lamas, they say, we as Westerners, we are so obsessed with our feelings. Right? Just follow your feelings. Follow your feelings and you're going to be happy. Right? We are taught that every time, every day. Follow your feelings. The reason why you're not happy is because you don't follow your feelings. And at a certain level, there might be a truth in that. But if we just follow our feelings, actually what we are doing is we're creating the causes for more and more suffering. So what we say in Buddhism is, focus more on your actions, right? We learn that in order to create the causes for happiness, we engage in actions that are in accordance with that. So we engage in virtuous actions. In order to become free of suffering, we stop engaging in non-virtuous actions. Have you ever heard of that? You never have heard of that? So in Buddhism, that is like the law of cause and effect. That if I cause others to suffer, I will experience suffering and dependence upon that. In the present moment, but also later on. If I cause others to be happy, I will experience happiness and dependence upon that. Right. So the first way to not one of the first things that we learn in Buddhism is that we stop engaging in harming others, that we stop engaging in the non-virtuous actions. That is the way out of suffering. Right. What we believe, what we automatically do, is that following our aversion is the way out of suffering. True? We are just focused upon the feelings of that arise in the mind, and then we want to separate from that. Well, Buddhism says you suffer because you have engaged in certain actions. And in order to get rid of your suffering, you need to purify these actions, but you also need to stop engaging in actions that have caused you the suffering. And so we need to look deep into our mind, like what kind of actions do I actually engage in? Because we all believe we are good human beings, no? I'm a good human being. It's like I'm constantly trying to be good. But if I start analyzing my actions, I might actually find that I have certain habits which are maybe not that virtuous. True or not? It's very painful to find in your own mind your negativities and your negative tendencies, because we do feel I'm good, I'm really trying to be good, and then you see something negative which is kind of ugly to see, and it's painful. It's like I didn't know that I had that. Have you ever found that in yourself, that you think, oh my God, no idea that I had that? And I think on the Buddhist path, when we engage, we might find more and more. I definitely know that since I got ordained, I've seen so, and even before that I had no idea that that was in my mind, because I grew up as I was the good girl. I'm a people pleaser. I always want to do the right thing. I always want to do the good things, but I always focus upon others, not so much upon myself. And so then with Buddhism, you start looking into yourself. And then I discovered all kinds of things that I thought, oh my God, I had no idea that that was in my mind. And then not pretty at all. And so then but then there's an opportunity to change that, to start doing things in a different way. And it doesn't happen overnight either, right? It is an ongoing work and process. And I think the more we go inside, the more subtle levels we discover of our mind, and the more we recognize that, I always thought I could get away with it, but maybe better not to get away with it. Maybe better address it and become completely clean of this. Right? So that is what we can do in order to go from reacting to responding. Instead of being focused upon the feeling, we focus upon the actions that we are doing. Right? And you need to see that when I start doing that, actually I am healing myself. I am healing myself, meaning my mind becomes more in line with how things actually function in reality. The universe functions in a certain way. True. It is like there is a law, there are laws in the universe. The law that is functioning in the universe is the law of cause and effect. And we can see that law on the physical level. Right? We know that everything that exists, everything that comes into existence comes from somewhere, comes due to causes and conditions. Nothing just appears out of nowhere from nothing. Right? Sometimes things might look like that, like the moon always has been there, never changing. We sometimes don't see the whole moon, but the moon is always there. It might appear as something that exists in and of itself. But when we think about it, then we know that, no, it must come from somewhere. There must have been a time that there was no moon, and there will be a time that there is no moon. But now we are living in a time that there is a moon. And that moon is changing. We don't see the changes, but the moon is changing. Right? So the universe works in a certain way. On a material level, we can see that things function in accordance with the law of cause and effect. Everything that comes into existence comes from many causes and conditions. And everything that comes into existence will naturally fade out of existence. True? And nothing needs to happen for that. Nothing is needed for that. Whatever comes into existence will naturally fade out of existence. True? Our mind doesn't know this, We live life as if we do not know this. Now we think about it and we say, yeah, true. But when we live life, we believe that certain things always were there and always will be there. And we believe that things are not changing. Right? It's a little bit, we have this weird relation with reality. But when we think we know, oh, yes, it's true like that. So same for the mind. The mind also works independent upon the law of cause and effect. So every thought that we have is the cause and will have an effect. Every feeling that arises is an effect of something that we have created in the past. And that effect can become the cause for something that we are going to create, which will have an effect in the future. Right? So every cause is also an effect, not of the same thing, but of a different thing. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So that is how the universe works, right? With independence upon the law of cause and effect. And so in order to go with the flow of the universe, in order to act in accordance with this law of cause and effect, the more we do that, the better we will feel. Is that true? When I resist life, when I resist what life is bringing me, I'm hurting. It hurts, right? It's like resistance hurts. It's painful. And I think, but I don't accept this. I have my principles. I want this to be different. Every time when we do that, it hurts. Right? And so going with the flow or going with the way that the universe works, understanding the law of the universe, and then going with that flow will bring us more in line with reality. And the more we are in line with reality, the less pain we experience and the more bliss we will experience. Is that true? It has become my conviction, but you might say, I don't believe in that, and that's fine. So I just want to check if that resonates with you or not. Or that you think, not sure about that. Maybe it's not completely true.
Can I ask another question here?
Sure.
Yeah. Again, just because I love specific examples, something that really resonated that you just were saying is about how once you started really looking at your own mind, it was very painful to see kind of the truth of what was going on. And so I feel like I very much identify with that, but I would love to hear an example of something that you discovered about yourself that was painful for you to accept or to see the truth of.
Or many things. So the first thing, I think Lama Zopa sent me to Nepal to study with a Lama. And I thought I really thought I was a good girl. And this Lama, at a certain point, he would teach me a little bit. And then, anyway. So the first teaching that I received from him was he gave me the practice of mindfulness, bringing the mind to the present moment. And he said, you need to do that 5 minutes a day. And I kind of was like, is that it? I didn't take it seriously. I didn't practice. I was like, I can't take that seriously. I want to have some real teachings. And I think he saw that, and so then I requested more teachings, and then what he did, he canceled the teachings 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and then one day I had to go up to the monastery to receive the teachings, and I arrived there, and one monk said to me, "Oh no, Rinpoche had something better to do," and I was so angry. I was so angry, and I had no idea I had that anger in my mind. And I was like, and then I thought, but he hasn't done anything to me. He's just not here. He just doesn't give you the attention. And look at your reaction, you know. And so then I had to say, wow, there's so much anger in my mind. I need to look at that. Right. So that was the first time. The first time that I saw my anger. Before, I never thought about myself that I thought I don't have that. I don't have anger. But there it was.
Thank you. That's really helpful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So I'll go back. So we take care of ourselves emotionally with the self-compassion. We take care of ourselves psychologically by, instead of being focused on the feelings, we focus more upon our actions. And then we can take care of ourselves spiritually by following a genuine path, by following a path that really helps us to go beyond our conditioning, that helps us to go to a freedom from all the, in Buddhism, we talk about the bondage of samsara, right? The bondage is all that conditioning that we have, these patterns of functioning that we have, the way that we react with our attachment and aversion to the feelings. That is actually what binds us. And in order to, what we want to become free of these reactions. We want to become free of that attachment, free of that aversion. And once they are out of our mind, the mind is naturally full of bliss. The mind is naturally full of joy and happiness. It is a feeling that is waiting inside us to be uncovered, and the cover that we have is our own reactions of attachment and aversion, these reactions to the feelings. So once we have found a way to let go of that, the joy and happiness is naturally there. And so the only thing that can bring that to us is that we follow a genuine path, a path that teaches us how to become free of these reactions. And so in order to become free of these reactions, we need to realize the nature of reality. We need to realize that the self, and now I'm going too quick. We need to, we need to realize the nature of reality. Once we see reality, these reactions, they become kind of, they have lost their power. We see reality, and then it's like, it's insane to have these reactions. They have become instantly kind of paralyzed. They dissolve. They cannot function anymore. Right. So that is, and so in order to follow that, the Buddhist path is the only path that teaches us to realize that ultimate nature of reality. And so then what we can say, what is the best way of healing? The best way of healing is to become enlightened. When we are enlightened, we have seen the nature of reality, and we have full compassion for ourselves and for all sentient beings. And so maybe you know that book from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Ultimate Healing, right? Where he only talks about becoming enlightened, and that is the ultimate healing. True. So my position is that we need to bring our mind in accordance with reality. And in order to do that, we need to understand reality on the conventional level. We need to understand the reality on the ultimate level. And then with that, we develop compassion for all sentient beings, including ourselves. And when we fully develop that, we live up to our potential. We live up to what we can become, or we live up to that what we already are in essence. That is what we have inside us, that potential. So when we can live up to that, we free ourselves from all the things that obscure our mind. We free ourselves from all the things that cause us suffering. And then what we become is we become just so happy with ourselves. It's like we become completely authentic. We become completely natural. We do not have to we engage in actions effortlessly. Maybe you have heard that when we become Buddhas, our actions are effortlessly, right? We don't have to think about how do I going to do this. We don't have to pretend that we are compassionate or that we are wise or that everything is there. All the qualities are there. Right? So I think that's the ultimate state of healing that we can achieve. Then we are home. Then we are where we need to be. Then we are what we truly are, or we have become what we truly are. True. How do you feel about that when I say that? Do you feel like, oh my God, that's too far away?
Yes. Yes, you put the words in my mouth. Um, I agree with you that ultimately that is the goal. And you talked earlier about, we may have to take the attitude that that would take several lives. And so, yeah, just as you said, that seems very far in the future. And it's like there needs to be a lot of work done before that.
Yes.
I was wondering though, I really liked your oh, I'm sorry. Go
And
ahead.
every step that we make towards that, we will start feeling better. We will feel starting more whole.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yes.
yes, there is a lot of work to do, but it is on the way. So on the way you become more and more and more whole. It's not that we will be broken for a long period of time and then at the end there is some kind of healing. The healing is every step that we make happens, every step that we make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? I really appreciated you talking about the specific example of the teaching that you kept going back for and never receiving the teaching and how angry that made you, because it seemed in the way that you described that, now looking back, you have the antidote, but at the time you didn't have the antidote. At the time you got very angry, but what I heard you saying is that now, as you're interpreting that situation, you recognize that your actions created the response from the Lama, that you weren't doing the practice that he had given you.
I
And
think that. I
yeah,
don't know.
well, of course, yeah, this is all the information we have.
Yeah.
But so um, so then, as I think about like what is the lesson of that? So you have this unskillful response where at the time you got really angry, and now as you reflect on that, you're thinking of the situation in empathetic manner. You're in hindsight, you're thinking about it from the Lama's perspective. Oh, the student came to me, I gave her a teaching, she ignored it. She thought it was too simple. And then she wanted more teachings, and I had better things to do. So you're sort of empathizing with the Lama. Um, is this the kind of discursive, engagement that you're looking for from us as we try to overcome impediments, things that upset us or set us off? That's my question.
So is your question like what to do when things set us off? When we become angry, when we experience something that we don't like?
Yeah, I guess just you talked at the beginning of this, you talked about healing and setting the conditions. So I'm just trying to understand. I like that metaphor about setting the conditions for healing the mind. And I'm just trying to understand how you interpret that as it's applied to specific examples like
okay.
this provided.
All right. So what could be the conditions so that that anger reaction would not be that strong? Is that a way of understanding it? And so I think what I think that understanding how the mind works, understanding reality, understanding oneself, understanding how delusions work, understanding what is what, and all that understanding helps to not engage in reactions that arise in the mind. So, for instance, I can see now that me not accept, me thinking, oh, what kind of teaching is that? It's pride, right? I want to have something better than just that. It's my pride. So that pride is an obstacle to receiving teachings, to learning something new, being more humble will help me to appreciate more everything that comes on my path. So how can I be more humble to thinking in the situation like, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? So that's the basic attitude. So I can then familiarize with that attitude and I can apply that to every situation. And that already is one thing that can prevent strong delusions to arise. Right? So that is one thing. Then learning about anger, I think the anger that arose, so it was not that the Lama said he had something better to do, but it was his attendant. And the Lama actually went to a monk who was dying, And so later I heard that and I thought, oh yeah, that is actually something better to do. But he has something better to do, made me feel like I was not worth it to give attention to. Right. So that made me and brought me in contact with that huge feeling of how you call that? Don't get to the word. What is that when we feel this feeling of I'm not worth it?
I think you got your feelings hurt.
My feelings got hurt, but also there was I'm not worth it to pay attention to. There was a neglect there.
It was demeaning to you.
Yeah. And I think that triggered some old wounds, and now having done a lot of work on my mind, I think, oh yeah, that might have reminded me of something that my mom did or my dad did, or right. So the strong reaction, what I've learned with time is that strong reactions are normally related to something that has happened before in our life, and something that has happened in relationship to probably our caregivers, probably to related to a period in our life when we did not have the capacity to deal with these kind of emotions. And so then you need to go back to that period and then do something about that. So now when strong emotions arise, I can say to myself with this knowledge, this is probably something gets triggered in me that must be related to something else. It's not only related to the situation, which means that I don't project all my anger onto the situation today, but I will take my time out and I will start looking in like what is actually triggered within me. So the more knowledge I have about my mind, about my own life, about the tendencies that I have, about the way that I try to protect myself, the way that I find or give myself what I need, the better I understand that, the more that reaction will be reflected, the more that will kind of dissolve. Because it is not that there is just one reaction and that is my reality. The reality has become so much bigger. And I can see that whatever arises in the mind is not related to one thing. It's related to many, many, many things. And I can think about, so these conditions is the knowledge that I have around myself, my mind, the way I react, the way I defend myself, the way I supply myself with what I need. All that knowledge is what is going to help me to not react, or to react less strong, or not to follow my reaction. True? Does that make sense? So the conditions for me is the knowledge. And there is, of course, also some kind of, there's also compassion there. Compassion being, for instance, accepting my suffering, seeing my suffering, accepting my suffering, being with my suffering, not immediately wanting to separate from my suffering. True? I see still question marks on your face.
Yeah, if I can follow up on that, that's a really interesting point. What you're just saying about accepting our own suffering. And I definitely see that I want to run away from my suffering really quickly. But I think what you're saying, this is something I've been kind of working with, like you just have to sit in it, right? You can't run it away, you can't eat it out, you can't exercise it out. You just sometimes need to learn to sit in the pain. And that is what makes the healing, or the conditions, right? That's creating the conditions, as you were saying earlier.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd love to hear any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think the more we understand about the mind, the more we are willing to sit with that suffering. And then when we sit with the suffering, we need to provide ourselves with conditioning that we can sit with the suffering. Right? It's like when we cannot sit with I think the aversion to suffering is naturally there. Then when the suffering is so big that we are overwhelmed, that we just cannot deal with it. Like, what can I provide myself with so that I can deal with it, so that I can sit with it? Right? So what kind of conditions do I need? And I think I have that next time that we're going to talk more about that self-compassion. Yeah. I can also say a little bit now. I can see that a whole thing that I prepare. We're not talking about that. So how can we provide ourselves with an environment in which we can be with the suffering? Right? That is what I think is self-compassion. And so we know that when suffering arises in the mind, we want to get away, we want to get out. So one thing that we need to do in order to stay is that we become mindful of what we are actually experiencing. So if I bring my mind to what is it actually that I'm feeling, right? Instead of following, like, I just want to get out of here, what is it actually that I'm running away from? And I focus my attention on that. So I become mindful of the painful experience or the unpleasant experience. And then the next thing that I need to do is, how do I talk to myself when I feel suffering? And that inner voice that we have when we experience suffering, I think is often related to the voices that we heard around us when we were young and we were experiencing suffering. You know, so if you had a mother who is kind of cold and says, just get over yourself, we will say that to ourselves, just get over yourself. Getting over yourself means you're not feeling what you're feeling. You're cutting off, right? So when we cut off that suffering or feeling that is arising in the mind, we disconnect from that. But it just doesn't mean that it is gone. It will just keep sitting there and keep nagging us until we say, yeah, what is it actually that I'm feeling? And only when we allow that feeling to arise in the mind can that feeling actually dissolve back into the mind, right? Feelings, they arise in the mind and then they dissolve back into the mind. If I want to separate from my feelings, what I'm actually saying, I don't want to feel it, which means I will not let it arise in the mind. And when a feeling cannot arise in the mind, it will keep pushing, right? And I push back. I don't want to feel it. I push it back. So what I need to do is to say, I focus my mind on the feeling and say, what is it actually that I'm feeling? And then in order to be able to feel it, I need to have an environment that is welcoming that feeling and that is supporting me in experiencing that suffering. So I need to have an inner voice and an inner world even that allows me to feel that feeling. So if I'm harsh to myself, that feeling is not going to come. The harshness itself is already hurting me, right? And so then if I do that and dependence upon unpleasant feelings, I also don't feel that unpleasant feeling. There is no space in my mind for that. But if I can say to myself, when we have these suffering feelings arising in the mind and we listen to our own voice, I don't think that we are as mean to anybody else in the world as we are to ourselves. And if we visualize our best friend having these feelings that we are feeling, and we think, what would I say to my best friend? We would never say to our best friend what we say to ourselves. Never. True? Are we aware of that inner voice telling us what kind of losers we are when we have these unpleasant feelings arise? And how we are failing and how we are not good for anything and how we are very, very harsh. Right. So if we can change that voice in the voice that we use when we have a friend who is suffering from the same thing, and we would use that voice to ourselves, we talk to ourselves as if we are our best friend. And we say, it's okay, I know what you're going through. And it's okay to feel this. It's like it's a human experience. You're a human being, and sometimes something comes on our plate which is really unpleasant. And it's not that you have done anything to make that happen. Sure, we know karma, but once we are suffering, we're not talking about karma. We are just talking about the experience that we have. And we want to be with that experience with compassion. So we are kind. We are saying something that is soothing. I sometimes feel that if I look into my own mind, and when suffering arises, the environment in which that suffering arises is so hostile that it's so painful to be in there. So then thinking about, I make a space which is beautiful, which is gentle, which is warm, which is soothing. I create that environment around that feeling that is arising. And then I guide that feeling with a kind voice, with an encouragement, with a loving kindness, with a compassion. Then that feeling can arise, and then the feeling just dissolves. It's just gone. Have you ever done that? Being mindful with the feelings of suffering. Right? Something is arising, and then say, I'm going to feel that. And I'm going to be with that feeling. So you can do that as if you are talking to your best friend. You can also think that you speak to a little child, right? Because I think many of us have lots of feelings that have not been digested when we were very little, and that are sitting somewhere in our mind, and then become the trigger, or it's like a wound that is sitting there, something unpleasant that has not been experienced. It's like a wound. So when something similar happens to us, it triggers us in that wound. And so then to sit with these unpleasant feelings and talk to the little child inside us, and give that child what it actually needed at a time that happened. You know? So you can visualize that you talk to a child. You can even say, how old are you? You know, how old were you when you were wounded in this way? You can visualize that child. You can take that child on your lap. You can, comfort that child. Right? So whether you do that with a child, whether you do that with visualizing yourself being your best friend, whatever helps you to be okay with what is going on inside you.
And well, we're getting close to the end of class, so maybe I thought I would just ask if there are any last comments or questions.
It's a good idea.
From any of the participants. So.
I have a question, Venerable.
Yes.
A while back, you were talking about seeing or getting in touch with actual reality.
Yes.
And that by seeing or getting in touch with actual reality would help us or eliminate the need for our reactions, these reactions that we have, like when you had your anger, and I have had that also, different reactions. And I guess in my mind, the way my mind works right now is how, if we're still reacting out of those, unconscious or immediate responses, how do we see reality?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because these responses that we are having, they cannot see reality, right? And I mean, and I think next time we're going to talk about that, about these reactions that we are having and why they are actually counterproductive. And in Buddhism, we say we are ignorant beings, right? And we cannot see reality as it is because the mind is obscured. But not only can we not see reality as it is, we see reality opposite. We see things opposite to reality. And so because we see things opposite to reality, the reactions that we have bring us the opposite effect as that they seem to bring us. Right? I don't know if you, I mean, for a long time in my life, I was trying to be happy and I kept thinking, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but I thought I'm just the only one in this world who doesn't understand how to be happy. But whatever I try to be happy is not bringing me the happiness that I'm after, And I think it's because we cannot see reality as it is. The actions that we are doing can never bring us the happiness that we are after. And so next time I will talk more about why that is and how that works in the mind, how we get deceived by our own delusions, why they are so deceptive and how they are deceptive.
Right. Because it almost seems that one would have to see the reality. Well, I don't know. Now I'm getting confused.
Yes,
I was going to say, see the reality.
We say you need to see the reality first in order to understand
the reactions.
Yeah. But I do think that we can think about, we can use our rational mind to think about how the mind works. And by training ourselves and repeating this again and again and again, we at a certain point, we can somehow intervene, and we say, oh, no, I know you now. I know this reaction, and I know it's not going to bring me what I'm after. It's going to bring me the opposite. So I'm not going to follow this reaction. It's not going to be helpful.
Right.
And then also we need to have an alternative, right? And so when we see that our reaction doesn't work, but I have an alternative, I can somehow, by training my mind, or by familiarizing my mind with that wisdom, I can change the way I'm reacting, and my reaction will become less strong. My wisdom becomes stronger, and at a certain point, that it's just gonna the wisdom is gonna overtake the delusions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Venerable.
Yes.
This is Katie. Hi, I'm so glad that you're there. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question about time. I joined at I'm on the East Coast, and I joined at what I thought was 12:45, but evidently it's later.
Oh my God, so, you missed part of it.
Yeah. So what time do I tune in on the East Coast?
Yeah, but I can answer that. The program is from 11:30 to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. And it'll be this is the first of 3 weeks. So the next 2 weeks, we do record these sessions, and they'll be made available.
Yes.
So I think usually they're posted on Fridays. So if you want to check back next weekend on our website, we should have the recording. You can see the first 15 minutes or the period that you missed. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that you missed that.
Well, I'll catch it on YouTube. I will.
Yes.
But next week I will be on time.
Good. So yes, there's a lot to talk about, no? When we speak about healing, and when we speak about bringing the mind in accordance with reality, it is so broad. And although I'm not a study person, I'm so grateful that Lama Zopa kind of pushed me in that direction, because the knowledge within Buddhism about reality, and about, even if we study the Lamrim again and again and again and again, we familiarize the mind with how things are. It's not a theory. It is an intellectual representation of reality. So it is not reality itself, but it helps us to understand with an intellectual mind how reality works. And so in order to get in touch with reality, we need to familiarize ourselves with how reality works. True? It's like it helps us to see reality. If we do not, sometimes they say, when you don't know that something is there, you cannot see it. True? There are all these tricks that they're doing. For instance, people who are playing with the ball and very mindful of the ball, and they cannot see that a big bear is actually around them. Somebody dressed up as a bear is around them, because they're so focused on the ball, and they have no idea that the bear is going to be there. They don't see it. Right. So by understanding reality means that the Lamrim teachings, they make reality visible. Right. It's not a theory. It's like practicing generosity is the basis of all the other perfections to arise. Right. So practicing generosity, it is like a guideline that if I engage in these actions, I'm actually engaging in actions in accordance with reality. And when I do that, my whole system, my body and my mind will become in accordance with reality, and it will make me more happy. It will make me more who I actually am. But then in that practice, resistance comes and all kinds of things come up. And so then we have to look at it. What is that? And why is that there? And why is it obstructing me? And what is that tendency in myself? Or what do I do with that? And so developing the mind that understands means developing your wisdom mind in accordance with reality. It's like you line everything up. And when you line everything up, it doesn't go crooked anymore, you know? You feel like, oh, yeah, I get it now. It's like things are opening up for you. Right? And when you get things and you understand things, you're not going to be shocked anymore with things that are happening. How is it possible that this happens? No, I understand why this happens, because reality is like that. And when I understand that things happen and why they happen, I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to be agitated. I understand. It's like that. So I become less reactive. True. Being more in accordance with reality makes us less reactive. So next time I will talk about the delusions, and I will talk about why they work counterproductive. And I mean, we have so many things in our upbringing and our not understanding. I'll see what I'm going to talk about. I think this should be an ongoing course every week, knowing something about healing the mind, because there's so much to say.
Lots of work. Do you want to end with a short?
Lots of work, but it is something that can be done, right? We have to remind ourselves also to that. It's like, don't get discouraged by thinking, oh my God, it's so much work. I mean, there was nothing else that we can do, no? Nothing else to do in this life.
Do you want to end with a short dedication?
Sure, we can do a short dedication. And so maybe to dedicate, you bring to your mind what was most useful to you today. And which means that what is most beneficial to you, and how can I apply that to myself, to my life? And then with that in mind, we can do the dedication prayers if you want to put them up, Yeshua. And we can read that together. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. And then when we do His Holiness Long Life Prayer, we can think that this is not just for His Holiness, this is for all the teachers, all those who are guiding us in developing our own potential for wisdom and compassion. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. All right, we leave it like this. And then next week we come back at the same time, and then we're going to go into the nature of the delusions and whatever else comes up that is going to be helpful in your healing journey. Thank you so much for being here.